Hello. This is the 136th test from the future. What are we making again? An experimental podcast. That was an experimental podcast from the year 2223, which we are sending from our present to yours. My name is Dirk.
And my name is Simon.
And we're putting the past in podcast. So yeah, remember my name.
Mm-hmm. That comes naturally, I think.
I kind of briefly forgot
what we do.
An experimental podcast.
Exactly.
And after 2 years...
Still experimental.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. We're being thorough. We don't want to take for granted that it works.
We keep on testing. Mm-hmm. And as we just heard in the intro, you shouldn't take anything for granted. Even if it worked 135 times before, you might just feel the 136th time.
Exactly.
So clearing that up, this week's episode, we don't have a particular topic.
Correct. We decided to instead answer many of the... So we've received many questions to previous episode in response to previous episodes, and we figured let's take a whole episode to reply to a bunch of them.
Exactly. And we specifically even announced that a few episodes ago, and then we even got more questions, and we can't answer all of them.
At least not today.
Not today, but we picked a few that we thought would be interesting. And it's a very wide variation, covering all kinds of things that we spoke about in the past. A few things that we briefly touched upon that people wanted to know more about. And also stuff that we didn't speak about at all.
Right, whole new subjects.
Yeah, that people just wondered, how's that in 200 years? And we have all the answers. Also means that it's going to be really topic jumping.
Right.
I think I can read the first question.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Going straight.
You can alternate. You read the question. Like in this case, you read the question, I'll answer, then we can do like
that. Yeah, that makes sense. So a lot of these were in response to the episode where we asked, please send us questions. So the number, most of the time it was that episode, although the actual question was
we don't need to mention, I guess, which episode it was in response to.
Exactly, yeah. So, anyways, this is from Kim Lee. They asked, can you connect the low-fidelity wave burner to a teleporter? Maybe it allows time travel.
Indeed. So to answer simply, I understand why you're asking, Kim Lee, because you don't understand how the technology works. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense.
The two things are so different from each other. They're just not compatible in that way. But even if they were, so the low-fidelity wave burner allows us to send MP3s back in time. That's all we can send back, just in terms of information, let alone physical objects. And sure, an MP3 has an ID-free tag, or it has ID-free tags, where you can specify the title and the description and stuff like that. There's no way you could fit enough information into an MP3's ID-free tag to teleport anything back in time.
Yeah. And just imagine next time you download one of our episodes.
Right. Instead of it being, 10 megabytes, 15 megabytes at most, that instead it was several trillion terabytes. That might be a problem.
And after you're done downloading the episode, suddenly you have, let's say, a sentient dinosaur standing next to you, because that's the thing that we send time travel.
Right. Something small like that.
We'll be testing. Yeah. So anyway, all
of that's beside the point. Exactly, they're not compatible.
It just makes no sense. Kim Lee really specifically asked that, but we've had in the past a few other people not specifically suggesting that, but
basically, can we send things back in time?
Yeah, hey, time travel. No, but the other way around, we can't time travel and send stuff back. You can send stuff forward by putting it somewhere.
Right, putting it somewhere secure.
Not touching it for 200 years, and then we'll find it.
Exactly, and if you feel like it, send us an email telling us where to find it.
Exactly, and that's kind of time travel.
That is just
really slow.
Yeah. Sure, so next question, I'll read it this time. Ahmed asks, can you describe Frankfurt a bit more?
Yeah.
That's a nice idea, right? Because we've mentioned often that we live in Frankfurt. I think we've mentioned places in passing. But so it is very different now than it was 200 years ago.
I guess so, yeah.
Let's describe it now, maybe, and
I think if we speak about Frankfurt is pretty large. I would limit it kind of to downtown.
Makes sense, yeah.
And then, I mean, coming from afar, you see the skyline. Frankfurt has a typical skyline, and this has a
big old tall skyscraper type buildings.
Exactly. So a lot of them are no longer in use. Some of them have been repurposed to be living quarters. A lot of them used to be offices.
A lot of them now have trees or other gardens, like really huge ones growing over the top, tumbling down the sides.
And some are art galleries all the way to the top. And of course, because we hover or take flying or hover vehicles everywhere, you can basically dock on every level. So there's the 35th of what was used to be the Fair Tower is now an art gallery. On the top floor, there's the parking garage, for example. But some other skyscrapers, they don't have a particular purpose. Sometimes there are parties there, or
some have just been taken over by farm animals.
Yep,
like as the place that they live.
Yeah, totally. Yep. And but so a lot of them. I mean, it's the skyscrapers really noteworthy. Have a lot of plants growing.
Right, and like you say, they're obviously the thing you see from afar.
Yeah.
Once you get into the city, I mean, you can obviously look up, you'll still see them, but around in your immediate surroundings, there are other, lower buildings.
Yeah.
I think I know they've been around for a really long time, so I think they won't be so different. Sure, they'll have different shops, different things in the windows. Futuristic things, no doubt, compared to 200
very
years ago.
Very futuristic things that we don't really identify as futuristic.
But I just also mean things like there must be brands now which didn't exist back then,
True.
So if someone from 200 years ago was walking about, if we were to list now a bunch of the names of restaurants or shops or stuff, probably it wouldn't mean so much. Yeah. So we don't need to do that.
But it's noteworthy, at least what I understand from looking at the older pictures. There's a lot more green. Greenery.
Yeah, there's much more greenery now.
Plants everywhere, because
a lot of roads, and because exactly there are no cars driving on them anymore. There's flying cars, but no cars driving. Yeah. So a lot of the roads have grown over now with grass, with tropical plants, and so on. Not all of them. Some of them are still kept clear as footpaths.
Exactly, that because that's a specific thing about downtown. Of course, you don't really need the roads anymore because except for walking, nothing actually uses the roads, so it's mostly dirt, grass, and so on. I think we did speak about this a few times. But indeed, there are a few places where they kept the old roads.
Yeah, they sweep them clean, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep it looking a certain way.
Keep the all the plants away. So some of them are asphalt, some of them are tiles, some of them are cobblestones. Yeah. There's this little cobblestone square, like the Römer, I think that's called.
Yeah.
That's all cobblestones, and they really keep that free from vegetation.
Right, to stop it growing over.
Yeah, at least the square itself, so not the buildings around it.
No, sure.
But that has a really typical atmosphere, typically of Frankfurt.
Yeah, and right, you meant so not just the skyscrapers have plants growing over them, but all the buildings. Well, not all, most of them do. And then also, this is also, I know this is new because it's just within the last 10 years. There are now many, along the paths and also sometimes embedded in the sides of buildings, these glass spheres filled with water and various fish or coral or whatever aquatic life.
It's supposed to be good for the environment, right? Or good for the people, or healthy, or I can't remember the reason.
That was part of it. I think also it just looks really pretty.
That's true. It does, especially if the sun is rather low, it kind of reflects in the spheres, and the sunbeams are reflected in all directions. That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I think also, like we mentioned before, Frankfurt is pretty known for its skyline. A lot of big, tall skyscrapers. And I think what's also very noteworthy is the big glass pyramid, which is not so big. So looking at Frankfurt from afar, you don't really see it. But depending on where you are in Frankfurt, depending on the sideline, it really suddenly dominates the...
still big compared to people,
yeah.
Just the skyscrapers are the things that dwarf it a little.
Because it's placed particularly in a way that a few of the big open grounds that really look out on that particular destination, suddenly it's at the end of that, depending on where you are.
Yeah. It'll be the end, exactly. It's where a lot of sight lines terminate.
Yeah, the pyramid, it's called, just in case anybody wonders. I don't know when it was built. Yeah. I've mentioned a few times, I live in a pyramid-shaped building. That's not this one.
No. The one you live in is more like a stepped pyramid, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
What was that place in South America? In South America, they used to have that type of pyramid there.
Okay. But also like mine is much more steep.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really look like a pyramid. It's just kind of pyramid.
It's just more like tiered, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also noteworthy, I mean, not typical of Frankfurt, is the floating city.
Sure.
It's not right above the city center, but it's relatively close by. And it's not finished.
Sure, still under construction.
Exactly. So there's this kind of like under construction kind of thing hovering over part of Frankfurt. It's relatively high up, but you can still see it. And of course, there's cranes and stuff sticking out of this.
Yeah.
So like a floating city is nothing special, but like an under construction floating city, and it's under construction for a while.
Long time now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it's almost like a landmark.
Yeah. Oh, and I mean, this is pretty unique to Frankfurt. So there's a big culture here of people taking retro cars and retrofitting them to be able to fly. So, most flying cars, they don't look like cars would have looked 200 years ago. They don't have wheels, at the most obvious example. But it's funny, sometimes you'll see flying overhead a car which really looks like just a car from the distant past. It will have wheels.
Yeah.
It has that pipe at the back where smoke comes out. It's not actually using that for propulsion anymore, but people will like put in there a thing which emits some smoke, to make it look authentic.
It's true. I'm completely used to this by now, but I remember like my first weeks here in Frankfurt, it was like, oh wow,
some funky looking cars.
Totally, yeah. Especially see them hover, especially the wheels, right?
Yeah.
The wheels they're called.
That's
it's
it.
like you first think that it's used for something, but it's not.
Not anymore.
And it's even trickier because they can't park at some of the garages at top of the skyscrapers because
they don't have the docking mechanisms.
Yeah, exactly. They can't dock themselves because the wheels are in the way. Yeah, I mean they even now occasionally have a few parking spaces reserved for old timers.
Yeah. I mean, and if it's your own private house, you can of course do what you like in that regard.
I think what's also not explicitly exclusive to Frankfurt, but still noteworthy, of course, there's the big river floating alongside downtown. That used to be really clearly canaled. And of course, they kind of like naturalized that. So it kind of meanders way more. And what used to be really strict riverbanks, it's now way more natural.
Yeah.
And there they did the same thing with old-timer boats. There's a few really old-timer boats that basically use modern technology, but look really old-fashioned, also for tourists. Yeah. I think maybe the cats.
Oh, right, yeah. Frankfurt also has quite a huge cat population.
Yeah.
And I mean, sure, maybe a handful of them will be pets, but the vast majority don't belong to or don't live in someone's house. They live in the streets.
Yeah, I think that's something that has been there for a long time. Maybe already in the time where the listeners live.
Maybe.
But of course, because most of it is low grass, it's a really nice environment. Especially the sun is shining. There's not so much wind between the buildings. And if the sun is shining...
The vegetation helps dampen that.
Yeah, exactly. And the sun is shining, especially when it's reflected in the spheres. There's a lot of really nice, cozy places where people occasionally
of course
put down their blanket, but a lot of cats always.
Yeah. And with all those... the spheres filled with water and fish, that's also wonderful for the cats. They enjoy just watching the fish. They can't get in there, It's a sealed sphere, so they can't actually get in, but they definitely try to.
True, actually. You regularly walk past one of these spheres and there's a few cats really staring at it.
Yeah, really intently.
Oh, yeah. So
okay, I think that good. We maybe went on a bit long in that way.
Yeah, but of course, we live here. We just have to walk outside your balcony and be inspired. So we could theoretically have a whole episode about Frankfurt, but I would say that's about it. I can move on to Dee's question. So Dee asked something very specific. They say, you mentioned that everybody's a vegetarian, correct? But also that you have vegetarian Fridays. So how does that work when everybody is a vegetarian anyways?
Indeed. And I think this is maybe a misunderstanding. So, okay, everyone is vegetarian, and also everyone's vegan.
Yeah.
And so the reason it's called Vegetarian Fridays is that on Fridays, when you want, you can also eat dairy products like cheese or milk, and also eggs.
Exactly.
Stuff like that.
So it's a lot of people, some people take that day as an opportunity to eat some of the dairy products.
Exactly, yeah. Maybe like a cream cake or something like that.
So it's basically, a day of sin or whatever is probably...
going a bit far.
Yeah.
Like these aren't actually produced from real animals, of course. These are still produced by the Congo.
Yeah.
But it's more like it's just a social convention, yeah. It's not anything harsh.
Exactly.
You don't have to do it, but if you want to, that's the day when most people do.
Yeah, exactly. It's just half marketing, I guess. But but that's what Vegetarian Fridays are about.
Right. And that flows into Manuel's question. They ask, if you're mostly vegan, what happened with all the farm animals?
Yeah.
Good question. We obviously ordered these questions in such a way that it made sense.
Yeah, exactly. That, and I think that's interesting because I remember somebody pointing this out before a while ago. We didn't get into it then. But like the world population turned vegan relatively overnight.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
very quick, not literally overnight, but so quickly that there wasn't time to like scale down food production.
Exactly.
Like industrial farming of animals.
Yeah, like some global waking up or whatever. I don't know what to call it. It's also a long time ago. I wasn't there around the time.
Sure.
And then they basically released all the farm animals.
Released them all into the wild.
Yeah, because of course you don't need pigs if you don't eat them, I guess, and you don't need chicken if you don't eat the
Some
eggs.
people, I mean, I think this myself, and so there's some criticism of this, which is, okay, it's, on one hand, it's definitely nicer than killing them all, but on the other hand, it was pretty short-sighted. It didn't really take into account, okay, cool, all these animals are now free. Where are they going to go? What are they going to do? How are they going to affect the local ecosystem?
It wasn't properly thought through, but I think it was like, okay, whatever. I'm just speculating, but maybe a bit of a necessity.
Yeah,
we don't need these anymore, so
good luck.
Exactly. Good luck. Bye. Send us a postcard. And surprisingly, they survived and thrived and did actually pretty well. I think the surprising thing is that maybe this is what people weren't expecting. A lot of them actually were like, "Hey, I'm making them speak like people. They don't actually speak like people, but I'm imagining it. It's as if they said, "Hey, let's go live in the cities." Yeah.
And a bunch of them did. And when we mentioned earlier, that some skyscrapers basically have been taken over by farm animals.
Yeah.
And this is why.
And it's also, I guess, in a way, people expected they're not going to be surviving out there in the wild by themselves.
Right.
But they didn't go out there in the wild. They stayed around. Cities, villages, fields, and so on, feeding on the crops and basically evolving relatively fast, adjusting.
Yeah. Right, that was a nice part of that is a nice part of the. So the animals that had been kept in industrial farms. That's some really messed up, shocking stuff from the past. And a lot of people used to think that animals were dumb, and it wasn't that they were inherently dumb. It's rather because of the way they were treated. That it really messed them up. So once they were living independent of that, they were able to basically regain some of their own society. And
using their rapid evolution that they
evolution isn't quite the word, but rather, because evolution would be, a different thing that's over millions of years, or at least a much longer time scale. It's rather that they rebuilt their society. Yeah,
but also I think they were adjusted the last couple of hundred years. They rapidly mandatorily evolved while they were still farm animals.
Okay.
Give more milk, make more eggs, whatever. And then they were kind of used,
selective breeding style.
Exactly. So when they were on the wild, they could really quickly adjust and evolve. I mean, that they can climb skyscrapers.
That is pretty impressive. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. Once you see a cow climb a skyscraper, you go I would like to know how to do that, without, magnet technology.
Yeah.
But that also means that they can get to anything. They figure out how to use public Congos, for example. I mean, call them pests is a little bit
I mean, that's
too
one
much.
kind thing, but people, so basically when it affects them directly, yeah. So you've got a nice roof garden going along, growing vegetables that you like. Some people out there, they do that kind of thing. Right, then you're pretty sad. You wake up in the morning, you learn that some animals have come in there in the night and munched them all up.
I mean,
and you're thinking, you're not expecting it, because you're up on the top of a skyscraper.
I mean, it happens to. So I regularly have a sheep in my on my balcony, and I live really high up, and then I don't mind, the ba 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 when I'm trying to sleep, whatever. They also live here, but all the sheep poo the next day.
I was about to say that's.
It's
that's not such a nice smell.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, it's cleaned up quickly and so on.
Yeah.
So it's like that's why like they live here. We just coexist basically.
Sure, yeah.
But yeah, so like they're called farmies, and they're basically herds of farmies in every big city. So you don't really encounter them really in the middle of the forest or whatever.
No.
But in and around cities,
they've really congregated in that way.
Exactly. And sometimes they just group like just cows, but there's a bunch that are really completely mixed.
Yep.
Horses and chicken and donkey and whatever all together. Yeah. So maybe
that's what happened with all the farm animals.
Yes, exactly. That's what happened with all the farm animals. Next time we hear ba ba on the balcony during one of our recordings, we can basically briefly move the recorder out there and have them appear on the podcast. Okay. Not a long answer. Next question is from anonymous. At least we wrote down anonymous. I guess we didn't know who this sent. And they asked, what do you do when your phone runs out of battery?
I mean, the obvious thing, you open it up and put a new one in.
Yeah.
Like, what else would you do?
Short question, short answer.
Exactly. Next question from Alicia. How do the aliens view life on Earth compared to their own planets?
It's actually an interesting question. I also deal with a lot of aliens through work.
Right. That's why I'm deferring to you on this.
Is whenever we humans speak about other planets, other celestial bodies, anything, the first thing we want to know is there water.
Right.
Like back in the days, is there water on Earth? Is there water on Mars? I think we've...
On Earth, I think we were clear one, but on the Moon rather.
Oh yeah, okay, sure. Okay, yeah. Earth, we figured that out pretty early on.
But exactly, because there was, and we need it for everything. When looking at other planets in the solar system, and then planets elsewhere, exactly, our first question is there water?
Yeah, it's like big news. There might just be water on one of Jupiter's moons. That's, if you read really old space news, it's always water, and then we want to colonize the galaxy. Let's find planets that have water,
Right.
It's like, and
so from the aliens' perspective, this must be bizarre, yeah?
Yes, they call it water chauvinism. They say like, you guys and your fascination with water, it's like, there are other ways to live. Look at us. Neither the Parisians nor the Illuminati need water. They don't even have it on their planets.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like...
Right, if we'd been the ones out looking, like it had been the other way around, not that they had found us, but we had found them, we wouldn't have found them because we wouldn't have gone to their planets, because why would we have? Because there's no water.
Exactly. This planet doesn't have water, can't have life. And it's just, for them, it's really hard to imagine to be so single-minded. And we still have that, because we're now really thinking about really exploring the galaxy much further and much faster than we've done so far. And we're still doing it. In this solar system, there's a planet that has water.
Let's go there first.
Big deal. But yeah, let's go there first. Yeah. Anyway, so that's how they view life on Earth. Really focusing on this topic, but it's a bigger, could be a much bigger question. I think could be
maybe an episode in its own right.
Yeah, exactly.
Last question.
Yeah, exactly. But we have one. We picked it as a last question for fun because it was also an answer to last week's episode where we made our own pizza.
Right, and we didn't actually say in the episode what we put on that pizza. I guess we'll leave that a mystery.
Exactly. And P. Yun specifically asked, what are your favorite pizza toppings?
Right. That's the question we're going to answer today.
So what's yours?
Spinach.
There we go. Spinach.
I love spinach.
I'm not sure if P. Yun saw that coming.
No.
But it's spinach. Yeah. And we did put spinach on the pizza last week.
Oh, we did?
Right, we did. What were those green leaves?
You know what? It's a whole week ago now, so I've kind of forgotten.
We did.
Because we asked my Congo to,
print the ingredients.
write in the ingredients.
We had green leaves on it. Something green. Was it spinach?
Yeah, it was probably spinach. Probably I am so used to having it on pizza, it doesn't even register as something we specifically asked for.
It's also, if you, usually I make a pizza in a particular style or name or whatever. Most of the time I don't even know what the ingredients are on the thing I'm eating.
Yeah. But I know at least when I order a pizza, when I ask for one from my Congo, spinach is the stuff. For yourself?
For me, it's bricks. It's
extra crunchy?
Definitely crunchy, and also this really earthy taste that they have. Yeah. And they really fill you up.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There's like
very dense.
One pizza with bricks, and I'm done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
I think we've answered all the questions for today.
We did. And normally we get to the segment listener questions. Mm-hmm. And we don't have any because we just answered all of them.
Exactly. So either that means we have no listener questions for this episode, or that's all we have. I think it's all we have.
Yeah. So how did they send these questions?
They sent the questions to us by emailing michaellasagna5@gmail.com and putting the number, they put in a different number, but for folk who want to reply to this episode, please put the number 136 into the subject line.
Exactly. So if you have any questions about the episode, about your questions,
questions,
you can send
comments,
these questions.
Exactly. Any other things you might want to tell us?
Yeah.
michaellasagna5@gmail.com.
Exactly. And then if you have questions about these questions, we can have another episode that is more of your questions, or your questions about your questions, or your follow-up questions.
We could go that route.
Or not. All right. Then thanks for listening, and see you in 200 years.
Bye-bye.